One of the most valuable things you can set up inside of your HighLevel account is actually a chat widget. I think this is a growing area and a blind spot in many businesses. And in this video, I'm going to go through all of the settings, how you can get it set up, how you can get it live, a complete chat widget 101 free course. And I guarantee it's going to take you less than 30 minutes to get it going. Here we are. I'm on the chat widget screen. I'll show you actually how to find this area, but on the surface, it looks like there's 4 different chat widgets. There's a lead capture form first chat widget, which is SMS and email. That's the same experience for WhatsApp. Obviously, like WhatsApp is just a WhatsApp channel. And then there's live chat, which is a direct to chat, having a conversation, works really well with conversation AI option there. So it's like chat widget that really just captures a lead, or chat widget that can capture a lead and have them have the conversation right there on the widget. For the purposes of this instruction, we're going to go through the all-in-one chat, which happens to carry all of the settings for all of those other type of chat widgets. So if you're only doing one where you're like, I just want to do SMS or I just want to do chat widget, that's fine. Click here, it'll start. It does change the starting screen a little bit for on the chat widget side of it, but all the other settings are the exact same. And you can easily follow along depending on which kind of version you are deploying for yourself. As a sort of an advice tip, my personal favorite is going to be live chat with the form capture turned on to start, paired with conversation AI, actually. So that is my absolute favorite. You get the lead. You can reduce costs of the conversation because they can actually have the chat conversation back and forth on the page. You can leverage AI, so you don't even have to be there handling it, and they get the best of all worlds where they get all the information right there in live time. I really think it is the best of all worlds, basically live chat with a chat form capture set to start. If you are serving WhatsApp, the all-in-one is nice because it gives them the WhatsApp option, but otherwise, that's my personal recommendation. And so to get started with building one of these chat widgets, from the chat screen here, you click on the plus new, and then go into all-in-one chats. At the top here, you can rename it. So I'm just going to call it the all-in-one chat. And some of these settings are going to be, they're going to carry over into multiple chat types, but I'll help you understand where the distinction is and to decide which one's going to be best for you. In terms of the first submenu item here of the widget, you have the chat type. And so for the all-in-one, your minimum is 2. So we've got live chat and then email and SMS. They say the minimum is 2. Your maximum is 3, but you can't choose that third one currently until you've actually configured a WhatsApp business line and the WhatsApp connection inside of a HighLevel account. And so for our purposes today, we're just going to look at live chats and email and SMS. And then you actually have it running as a demo in the bottom right here if you want to see what does the chat widget experience look like as you're editing it. So the first thing you get to choose is your initial message there. This is not the welcome message. You'll see that's later on, but this is actually the message that shows right here where it says choose a chat option to get started. So instead of that, we could say, what's the best channel to chat. It is kind of interesting that live chats and SMS, I like how they've positioned this as like chat via SMS/email or chat via live chats, because some folks, the assumption is live chat is live and SMS and email is not live. It kind of is the case here, but it feels like both of these are live. So I do appreciate that, but you can choose what's the best channel in chat, or you can say like, we're online and ready to talk. Or if it's just you, I'm online and ready to talk. The idea here is prompt them to choose one of these two. It's kind of self-explanatory that you pick the button there. Then you have some styles. So this comes down to, let's close this again. Do you want to have the prompt? If I turn that off, now I just have the icon without a prompt happening over there. I actually do recommend the prompt. I think it makes a difference in the conversion rate on the page. And then you've got the icon, the default settings. You can even upload a custom icon. Some of these are kind of more reminiscent of that's what WhatsApp expects. And that's what kind of, live chat platforms expect a little bit there. there's really no wrong answer, but it's cool that you can upload an absolutely custom one, especially for clients that care. Typically with marketing, the more unique it is, the more effective it is. So play around with it, test and see. In our experimentation, the biggest lift is just having a live chat or a chat widgets. It's not about the icons, but you can personalize that. Same thing with the theme. These are the colors that sort of apply to it. They've got out of the box a blue, green, sort of a red, yellow, and purple, but you can completely customize all of the items here. And with colors, you open up the font options. So if you're like me, my team knows I love Poppins. So I would choose Poppins as the font there, and then I would probably, nitpick into each one of these colors. But blue is generally welcoming and on brand, so I might start at least with that, change my fonts, and I'm feeling pretty good. But you can seriously personalize all of these aspects of the chat widget here. And then you've got the welcome message. That's actually the first message that shows up if you're using the chat prompt. So another way to think of it is the welcome message is the chat prompt message here. And we have, hi there, have a question, text us here. I do see that it tends to convert better if you have sort of like a open-ended prompt, like how can I help, especially for live chat where they can immediately start texting. We've seen the experience where it's sort of this, how can I help? I'm online now, gets folks to literally respond with, I'm good, I'm just looking around on the website. And you're like, great, now I have your contact information, like glad you're there. So just imagine the experience that happens in the physical world, like you walk into a store and they're like, hey, how's it going? How can I help? Versus just standing there glaring at them. Like, so try to frame your language in a way that's going to get someone to start the conversation, because you typically see a drop off between visitors on your page or website and then the actual leads you get. This helps you increase the number of leads that you're getting. Then you can have the returning visitor greeting. So this is like custom if you have their name, if they come back again. This works incredibly well. And so that's the prompting. So welcome back name, how can we help? Like I said, I like to speak in a way or write in a way that I might be speaking. So as they're reading it, they're imagining someone saying it and it feels like a human. So, hey there, name, how can, instead of we, maybe I'll be like personal there. How can I help you? Or sometimes I'll say like, any questions I can answer for you. And even that, where you're like grammatically correct would be questions. I might keep the grammatical errors because that feels like there's a human on the other side who just typed this message quickly. And the more human it is, the better conversion rate, the more connection that we see. And at the very bottom, we have widget customization. So this turns on or off the avatar there. If you are going to use the avatar image, I highly recommend you customize it. This is an image from Unsplash, and this gal is now famous as the personal chat assistant over the entire internet for millions of businesses. So you can replace that, which is nice. You can set the alternative text for the image there. Probably business name is going to be appropriate here as opposed to avatar. And then you can change the position. See, the common ones are usually on the bottom, but I have seen this kind of floating in the center there, and I think that does do pretty well. So just orient it with what makes sense for your customer as or your lead, your prospect there, as well as what else is going on the page. You don't want to put it in a position where it's blocking some critical information that they need access to. And the last piece here is the widget dimension. This is actually the height and width of what size the opening is. And so this is kind of cool where you can just like customize this to feel a little bit more unique. So if I go larger, you see now it's unnecessarily tall. But it's kind of nice. So if you wanted to take up more of the screen, you can do that as well, and play around with the experience that feels. I see you've got a minimum height here, but the experience that feels appropriate and then also kind of like feels engaging. But auto is totally fine. I think works well. You just have the ability to customize that if you want. The second tab here is the chat window. this is what it looks like at the top. So this title and intro is the have a question. Sometimes we will make it feel like it's a real agent they're connected to. So this might be like Allison, business name, right? Or you're chatting with Allison, or Allison J at business, right? So we'll commonly do that to make it feel like, oh, you connected with a person. The intro message, enter your question below, and a representative will get it right back with you. So this is what happens after they choose an option here. Now, it is slightly different if I go like live chats. You see it's demoing what happens. So with live chat, they get the message, which is enter your question below. Like I might say like, how can I help today? They're going to chat something. And then you get this option. One, you can change the sending button for the form. But immediately we've got some options here. In what we're demoing here is the live chat experience. You saw it because I literally clicked into it. If you go to chat via message, you still get the same prompt. So you can't change the intro message per channel there. So it's the same initial message. It's just that if they choose chat via SMS and email, they're just given name and then whatever else you put in there. And so now you can add in these other fields as well as even custom fields. So you can add additional fields that you've created for the accounts beyond just the default name, email, phone number. You need to add a minimum, I believe, the name and another field. Yeah. So you see there, when I clicked X on email, it forced in phone. So you can have name and phone, or you can have name and email, but you cannot have, you have to have name, and you need at least one of those channels, especially for the widget that's, phone or email. And then messages, generally, I would recommend message, but you can also use custom fields here depending on what it is. So this is where people might have, other things that pertain specifically to the business. And so as we're demonstrating this, we can go back and forth between the live chat experience and the chat via SMS experience there. The start is the same with the first message. It's just whether you have a conversation start before it gathers details. My recommendation is, if you're using live chat, I highly recommend you pair it with Conversation AI. I'm going to link to a video where I go through a full walkthrough on Conversation AI, and that pairs really well with live chat. Otherwise, it feels like an unnecessary frustration to start the live chat and then have it say, no one's here, give me your contact details. You may as well have just started with the SMS and email option there. But you can customize the form field options. You can customize the message, right? You could say something like submit or send. This is also, they open up some of the flexibility here, because if you are using a different language, you can edit all of these fields, almost all of these fields, into the different language that you want to use. And so that's allowed as well as you can redirect. So upon the submission here, sort of like a complete, you can have sort of the redirect text, which is, in this example, for more details, please visit our website. And that would be upon submission. It says here, it adds a call to action that redirects users to a website when clicked. Enabling this feature is not suggested if Conversation AI is active, which makes sense. So this is typically, if you're not going to be home anyways, or you're not always home, it's literally just a human handling it, then this is helpful, and it sort of sends them there if nobody's responding. And I'll show you what that gets into with the assigned message and the process here. So here's where we have the timeout for activity. So if you're running in live chat, you can enable the contact form, which just means they get the contact form at the start of the conversation. I highly recommend that. It's sort of the best of both worlds. Then you can show a welcome message to get connected. And then you have a delay. So this is at minimum 2 minutes, where then it would prompt, no one's available, leave us your contact details. If I'm running Conversation AI, You don't need to do the welcome message, right? It says keep it disabled if you're running conversation AI, because AI is going to handle it. And so this is kind of the best of all worlds. Is you enable the contact form, you pair this with conversation AI. You don't need, this is the user and activities. Like if they don't respond, let's say for 10 minutes to the AI, actually, no, this has to do with how long a timeout is going to wait. I believe with conversation AI, this is only going to pertain to them because the AI is always going to be responding there. I don't think this message should show if they don't respond, but I think this is only for user inactivity, which would mean on your side. So if you're not using conversation AI, this could come into play. It also doesn't matter if you're enabling the contact form at the beginning, where they start with the details to get into the conversation. Next piece here is what happens when the chat closes. So this is where you want, like, they're calling contact inactivity time. If the contact is inactive for 10 minutes, what do you want to show to them? And basically you only get a message here, which it looks like you've left the chat. So I'm closing this down. And you can see I'm writing the language here, feeling conversational, advising and suggesting that you would pair this with a conversation AI. So just to recap, this timeout does not matter if you're using conversation AI because the AI agent is always online, always available, unless you set it not to be. And this timeout and activity for close is what would see the message. If they got their answer, they're going to leave and they just forgot to close it down. Last piece here is business hours. So this is where you can enable certain hours for them to be able to have a conversation with, at all, right? So if you're doing live chat, not via AI, and it's actually someone behind a desk, this is super helpful because it'll preemptively tell them that it's outside of hours, and it kind of turns into a lead capture form only. Extra flexibility, not typically something I'd recommend. And then the branding at the bottom, you can turn on or off the agency branding, which is the really SaaS branding that's happening there. If you turn it on, they can literally change what that shows as. So it's really like, do you want to have sort of like branding at the bottom? You can turn on and off the consent for HIPAA right there. And I know it says consent for HIPAA. This is actually probably more consent for, there's other things that are included under HIPAA here. This could be TCPA. This could be just consent for opt-in. Definitely necessary for HIPAA compliance. And also if you do that, you can have it be checked by default or unchecked by default. And then you've got the legal message and disclaimer there that you let them know, especially when it's, doesn't apply as much in this version, but for the SMS, this does apply more because there are actual costs associated with the text messages. And so those are all the settings for the chat window. I understand it's a deep dive and there's certain things that apply and certain things that don't, but hopefully it's giving you a little bit of understanding there. And then messaging. Last piece here is what's happening for certain live chat situations, and as well as sort of like the icons that you're using inside of that live chat experience there. So we'll go into live chats, and so you can see here's certain icons for feedback at the end there. You can change the icon. You can put a custom one. You can change the placeholder color there. So this kind of like overrides your branding just for certain things like the feedback screen. You can change the language for the feedback chat. So when they end it, when the chat's ended, what are you showing over there? The message where the chat's been ended, that's the small text right here. The feedback message. And then this is after they submit it. So let's see if I give it a thumbs up. It'll say, thank you, comma, for taking your time. Highly recommend you customize this to whatever pertains to the brand. For email and WhatsApp, you've got a couple other settings there where you have to put in your customer support phone number or email contact, the acknowledgement message there. You can customize the acknowledgement message on the WhatsApp. I'll show you. That looks more like this when you go into the SMS and email there, where it's going to say their details, and then this sort of like thank you, one of our representatives will contact you shortly. There's the thank you. And then there's one of our representatives will contact you shortly. Last piece here is the language. So HighLevel continues to get better at multi-language functionality, and you have you can use the location. This is like the sub account language there. You can use the website language if that's set, or you can have a override. Why you might have like website language or location language is depending on where you're using the widget. So if I'm using it in multiple websites, or if I'm letting the user change the website language, or it's based on their browser, this is super helpful. The location, this is just an old high-level term, and I'm sure by the time you're watching this video, they've already corrected this. It should say sub-account or account language. I think that's what this applies to. It might actually apply to the browser location. So if they're in the United States, if they're in California, they're going to go with English, even though their website and their browser might be set to Spanish. And so you can set it, or you can let their website or their actual geolocation preferences determine the language of the widget there. All of that is how you get your widget configured now. Now we got to actually get it live. And so there's two ways. There's actually a WordPress plugin, so you can connect it directly within WordPress. This link here will actually take you over to the Lead Connector plugin and get it live on WordPress. Otherwise, you can click on Get Code, and it'll give you a quick and easy script you can copy and paste into the header or the custom code area in any website. The other fun thing is inside of HighLevel, natively within funnels and websites, if I pull up a funnel here and go to the settings in the funnel, you can actually turn on a chat widget from within the funnel settings there. So I can pick my all-in-one chats, and that's the other way you can deploy it specifically to a landing page or a funnel there. You don't even have to copy and paste the code in. And so
if you're trying to learn more about HighLevel, or you run into any other issues, please let me know in the comments. If you want to subscribe to the channel, I'm producing content all the time, keeping you up to date on the latest stuff. And if you want a completely free course on all that HighLevel's got going on from an AI perspective, you can check that out here.